Block would be clear down.
Feeling good? 2AC number 1, the fiat through governmental institutions is best for a couple of reasons. The ACE point we isolate is fairness. It's the only predictable framework for evaluation, because if they're allowed to not use the government, they can choose any kind of individual advocacy that's unpredictable for the affirmative. It destroys our ground because we can't get offense against a mindset shift or against a specific person changing their mindset. There's no way to actually leverage our affirmative in that type of war, which means that's responsive to their arguments about how they increase ground education. The visa point is education. When we don't talk about the actual resolution, what is grounded in the resolution, we lose track of what we should be learning about in debate rounds. Our argument is that we need to learn about these 4 critical cases, and that the discussion of critiques and individual advocacy does precludes these kind of discussions. If you win the fiat debate, you should disregard the alternative, because the alternative is not fiat through a governmental institution. Nowhere is that in the alternative text. The alternative text is just to accept a coming community. There'll be more on that below. Now, the next argument is the mode evidence, that even if they win the fiat does not exist, they don't make this argument. Even if they do win that argument in preemption argument, mode evidence indicates that advocacy is critical to actually challenge the court, even if fiat does not exist. If we need to talk and have dialogue within this round in order to scrutinize the judiciary system and hope that somehow we can change it, even if we do not have actual, real, visible change. It's important, and it is a prerequisite to actually creating equality to have this dialogue. It's Duarte evidence, which means this is a reason that we are a prerequisite to solving their kind of the impacts they isolate. Now, the permutation debate. They might be waxing us on the rest of this critique debate, but there's no reason that we cannot do both. Our argument is that this is not severance because we'll do both. There are a couple net benefits. The first argument here is that there is no reason we can't expand the privileges and immunity clause to include non-citizens. There's only a link of omission. Remember that if you look textually at the plan text, we just say, well, we will expand the privileges and immunities clause to allow for desegregation. If the alternative is truly to allow for the expansion of non-citizens, there's no reason why the court cannot write that into their decision. There's no reason why this would be severance, because it's just a link of omission. It is all inclusive of the plan. Now, we isolate a couple of net benefits. The point of support evidence indicates that dating law would lead to things like apartheid and totalitarianism. That judicial scrutiny is uniquely critical. That silence is violence. As long as we do not engage ourselves and contextualize and interrogate the Millikan decision, which would still be on the books in the world of the alternative, we cannot create a world where we are all equal, a world devoid of identity classifications, because it is the Millikan decision that structures how we view the world, that indicates that some individuals are defective and should be shunned. That leads to the visa point, which is stigmatization and desegregation. Remember that they do not desegregate, they do not stop stigmatization, because our embrace the evidence indicates we need to contextualize the decision via the court. Our Leinhardt and Andrews evidence indicate that the image and the methods that is sent by Millikan, the Millikan decision, as long as it is on the books, is one that dehumanizes individuals. This is the crux of the debate round, because our evidence is empirical and indicating that this is how the court has been able to create exceptions in the first place, and it also subsumes all of our arguments about how the court would be able to be co-opted in the future, because once we change the way the court thinks, our argument is that we can reimagine these local communities and create interlocal communities, and this means that we would be able to solve racism, whereas the alternative would not. Our argument is that racism is the biggest impact in the round, even if they solve dehumanization. The fact that people are still viewed as inferior and defective in the world of the alternative means that you should defer affirmative. Our evidence indicates that racism forms the basis of all conflict. It also indicates that you have an ethical contract. The MEMI evidence also takes this a step further, indicating that the only ethical choice is a political choice, and indicating that we have to deal first with the law in order to resolve these types of problems, and simply fiating past the fiat and that a coming community will somehow happen in the future. Now, remember, if they make arguments about how they are like some use of the law, and that means that the permutation is okay, that we can actually change the privileges and immunities clause. See, the point is there that hospitality is only possible internal to the law. The alternative does nothing to actually affect the law. Our evidence indicates that even if the law cannot be perfected, it is the support of this contradiction that allows us to embrace the other. Our argument is that this is a universal embrace. That nowhere in our 1AC do we say that we will only embrace citizens, even if that is in the text of the privileges and immunities clause. Now, the alternative is nothing to remedy desegregation. The community is impossible. Millikan's on the books. The alternative is an intellectual party where me and you embrace alterity that does jack to Millikan. And in addition, their plan text focus arguments are relevant, because we'll defend the plan text. We'll just defend that in a world of a plan, the privileges and immunity clause will be fundamentally transformed. There'll be more on that in the Andrews debate. And the decent point here is Zizek, that a modest demand is more powerful than a radical restructuring of the system. I don't understand where he answers this argument. He makes a lot of arguments about ontological boundaries and how there is a distinction between the citizen and non-citizen. But our argument is that instead of simply rejecting the citizen system universally, we can better be able to change it by getting coalitions with us, by making a modest demand, which is what the permutation would do. Now, if they try to make arguments about how they are our entirety of the affirmative minus the part about non-citizens, floating picks are a unique voting issue. Is a point of strategy. The seals want to see defending us from leveraging advantages and all permutations or severance. The unpredictable nature of floating picks means we can't research terms or physical solvency, deficit links, devastating affirmative ground. Decent point of education takes focus and debate down to relevant and arbitrary issues like compensation or budgetary limitations, and also they can, that's good enough. And that's a voting issue if they try to make those kinds of arguments. Remember, the alternative, as per the 1NC, is just that a coming community should happen, not that they fundamentally alter how we reconceptualize citizens and non-citizens within the law. Now, the Andrews debate. First argument here is that our Andrews evidence indicates that locating the privileges and immunities clause within the context of desegregation can transform the document. It's your preferred evidence because it is predictive. None of their evidence is actually predictive in indicating how the privileges and immunity clause will be used in the future. Even if the privileges and immunity clause has been used in the past to justify segregation and create a division between citizen and non-citizen, our evidence is we can change that and transform it specifically in the context of desegregation. You can read the cards after the round. I guarantee they are very good and indicate that this is the only way to actually structured dare coming community. Second evidence here is that privileges and immunities is a starting point, exactly a starting point because of all of their claims about how the privileges and immunities clause is bad and the status quo provides uniqueness for us. And in addition, privileges and immunities will serve as a locus for reinvigorating constitutional protection for human dignity and general interests. And constitutional laws must the opportunity to repeal the flaw in the Constitution with problem slavery was always most significant since the fundamental laws of black protection under the Constitution for basic human dignity. Always find a way to see the problem of slavery related to general freedom and appreciation of American law within the section of the human privileges and immunity clause is the most logical potential locus for the immediate elaboration of the additional substantive trans under the Constitution. The interests of broad protection for basic human dignity, cross reinterpretation of immunity clause will include within the scope of concern for human dignity, which would call into question our national and dissolution matters with any reinterpretation of the privileges and immunity clause should rely heavily on the objective universal of human dignity in its substance in the form of a broader view of the privileges and immunity clause under the Constitution would dictate the justice to be determined through a lens that recognizes that the well-being of one is intimately connected with the well-being of all others. In a dual race and humanity conscious analysis course would be required to assiduously consider the totality of the circumstances when evaluating coming privileges and clause with the ultimate goal of being explicitly and fully humanized and compassionate justice for all. That answers our arguments about how the court will be able to create an exception because this evidence indicates that they'll be required to look at the totality of the issue and look at everybody. Now, the next argument works on is the law that upholding legal principles is uniquely key. It exposes the law and solves exploitation. That means that if you think that they're running any residual link in terms of the permutation, that exposing that kind of thing, there is a division between citizen and non-citizen is what is necessary that we can solve those things. Also, they make the argument that linguistic terms are necessarily battle rights or mandatory and the privileges and immunities clause is a stepping stone. They say that we don't reject the use of all law. However, either you reject the use of all law and the permutation solves, so there's a huge dissent.
So 5, is that right? Back card, and then do we have more that you took?
Start the time, Randy.